Hi everyone. Well, the weather's a lot better now. The sun's out, it's approaching midday on Sunday, so I thought I'd give you a quick tour around the plot before lunch. Well, the rain lasted about 9 or 10 days and we really needed it, and I can safely say that we've had enough now, I think. Certainly for the potatoes to fill out, and as you can see just in front of us here on the two 13 by 6 foot beds, they're doing just that. These are Charlotte and Kestrel, and we've even got a few flowers now showing on some of these plants. So the potatoes down here are doing really great. You can see a little bit further up that the Sweet Williams have filled out nicely and they're looking really vibrant. Still quite a bit to put in the flower bed in front of them, and as you can see I've put marigolds down the side of the path. We've got the dwarf sunflowers in there, and my plan is to put some rainbow chard at the foot of that bed, and then the dahlias, cosmos and carnations in the empty part in the middle. I've been holding back with the dahlias until the weather improved, and hopefully they'll be planted out in this coming week. The rhubarb's bounced back with all the rain, and despite the strong winds that we had, the sweet corn seemed to have weathered the storm as well, as have the broad beans. You can see that the established raspberries are really filling out now, and I can see a few flowers forming, but there's still quite a way to grow yet. But it looks like it'll be a good year for raspberries. The broad beans are coming on nicely. I took the tops out just as the black fly started to appear, but the pods are filling out nicely now, starting at the bottom and forming higher up the plants as well, although obviously they're tiny in the middle of the plants. Still some filling out to do. They're not solid in the middle, but it won't be long before we can take the first harvest of broad beans. We've got lots of brassicas now dotted about the site, but as you can see the cloche covers need to be taken off and they need to be weeded. I have actually weeded the entire site from corner to corner, so it's pretty free of weed now, but because the brassicas have been covered up, they've been left till last. But you can see they all look healthy. They're all standing proud, and we've got some Savoy cabbage on the left there, Traviata. In this blue cloche in front of me we've got January Kings, and down the middle some Ironman broccoli. More cabbage, Brussels sprouts, but as you can see lots of weed, so that'll be my job for this afternoon after lunch. The main crop potatoes are doing really well. They were a little bit spindly to start with, but hopefully over the course of the next week or two they'll soak up and absorb all of that moisture in the ground, which should have penetrated down a good foot or so, because by my estimate we've probably had something of the order of 150 to 200 millilitres. It really has rained quite a lot. Starting to come into flower as well, a few of the plants, so with a bit of luck it'll be a decent crop this year. The sweet corn's taken a little bit of a battering, just like a few of the other crops on the site, but it's held its own, and each day I came and tied in the plants, moved the ties a little bit higher to provide a little bit more support, and they're growing on nicely, and they've managed to retain reasonable colour. They're fairly green, and we've about 40 plants here, so other things being equal, if we get some nice sun and sunny weather now, we should get some nice sweet cobs. The Monge 2 are coming into flower and they look lovely. This is the variety Shiraz. It's a red Monge 2, a red flat pea, and really lovely little blooms. I did put some sticks in this section with a Monge 2. As you can see, I put some canes in the taller growing variety. But I didn't get a chance to put sticks into the Jaguar peas, and they've been knocked about a little bit by the weather, and we've got quite a few pods forming on them as well. So I don't know if you can see. So it shouldn't be too long, maybe a week or so, and we'll be harvesting some peas as well. I will try and put some cut down canes in here and in the subsequent rows as well, just to provide some support. Some Stanley French dwarf beans planted here in a flat bottom drill again. Just enough space to do that between the peas and the leeks to the side, but I need to get these covered up now. Leeks are doing okay as well. These were watered every other day or so prior to the rain, and they're doing nicely, although I think a rabbit's been in and taking the tops out of maybe 4 to 5 on the first row here, but not to worry, they'll grow on. The comfrey, 5 weeks on, is ready for a cut again, and the wind and the rain have shaken a few flowers off, so I need to get those picked up, take all the flowers off, and then cut again so that we've got another batch of feed. And I did take the comfrey tea out of the pots that were filled about 5 weeks ago, and they're in bottles now, so we're ready to start feeding. On the no-dig border, with about a dozen dahlia plants that were left in the ground, covered with about a foot of manure, and they're all coming through nicely as well. So maybe another 4 to 6 weeks and we'll start to see some colour in this bed. Just popped into the top greenhouse, and as you can see, all the plants are looking really nice and healthy. I tied them in and side-shooted this morning, as I normally do on a Sunday. It's a really nice therapeutic job early on a Sunday, and as you can see, lots of cherry tomatoes have formed. Not much in the way of dry rot this year. I did notice 1 or 2 of the beefsteaks in one of the other greenhouses had broken off at the knuckle, but for the most part I don't think we've suffered too badly, and that's without any shading. Although having said that, this greenhouse is a little bit cooler than the other 3. The swede are doing nicely in one of the beds on the top no-dig plot, as are the carrots. They've become quite bushy now, but I need to take all of these covers off, as I said earlier, and have a good weed. I also need to cut the grass because it wasn't growing very much in the hot weather, but it's bounced back a little bit. Looks nice and green, but it does need a good cut. Well, I think it's going to be a great year for onions this year. The French onions, the Caravel Pink, have really bulked up. They're almost at a size where they can be taken. And the Longo shallots are doing great as well. They've all divided and taking on quite a bit of bulk already. The overwintering shallots are doing really nicely as well, and these have all divided and are filling up. Just a little bit more advanced than the summer shallots. We'll probably end up harvesting them both at the same time. And as I mentioned earlier, the rhubarbs really bounced back nicely. I thinned it out about 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and you wouldn't know it. Still got some growing to do, but we should have effectively a second season of rhubarb. We've already taken the best part of 200 stalks of rhubarb off the plants. There are about 89 plants here, and I suspect we'll end up taking just as many again. If I turn to the right, you'll see all the comfrey feed. I think we've about 70 2-litre bottles there, and I'm going to try and do this before lunch actually. I'm going to give the plants the first feed. So I'll just show you in the remaining 2 greenhouses, well actually 2 of the remaining 3, and you can see that everything's lovely and lush in here. Still picking from the pak choy and tat soy, although they've started to go to seed, but I've been taking the tops out. They're used in stir fries anyway, so if there's any bitterness in the leaves, we've not really noticed it. I did pot on the Swiss chard as well, the rainbow chard, and that's all looking really healthy. The winter squash, I think we've got 6 plants here and another 6 here. I've held on to these, and I like to give it a good month or so after the last frost before they're planted out, so I potted them on. But the weather has not been ideal, as I say, over this last couple of weeks, so I've held these back, and I might hold them back another week or so until the weather is properly settled, and then they'll get planted out alongside the courgettes in one of the beds. About half a dozen gherkin plants there at the back as well. Some kohlrabi on the shelf to be planted out. Lots of salad. More than we can eat really. But I need to cut some of this and take it home at lunchtime. Some more chard and beetroot there growing on in the corner. The beetroot is ready to be planted out. Cosmos growing nicely. And I think down underneath I've got another tray of, now then, I think that's spinach that I've, yeah, that's a baby spinach leaf. And what else have we got? Yeah, some spring onions as well. So there's plenty to choose from here, plenty of leaf, and we're doing quite well really in that regard. Dahlias sat waiting to be planted. They're hardening off a little bit. They've spent some time outside and some time inside, in and out like a yo-yo with the weather. But they're all nice and stocky now, ready to be planted out. And here we are in the long greenhouse, the 16 by 8, and all the tomatoes look really well. Better than they have done at this stage of the year in previous years, I think. They are ready to be fed. I've noticed a little bit of the colour, the greenery being lost in the lower leaves, so it's the right time to start feeding. They've been in here, believe it or not, only 4 weeks, I think it is, maybe just a tad over 4 weeks since they were transplanted here. And as you can see, we've got 2 or 3 trusses on most plants. Some nice beefsteak tomatoes forming already. That's a reasonable size. Lots of cherries. All the cherries are on the right side of the greenhouse, just here, and the beefsteaks on this side. Yeah, so I'm really pleased with the tomatoes this year. In the back, the cucumbers, just tied these in, done a little bit of pruning. I'm growing about 3 stems on each plant, and I've got 2 canes in each pot. A few peppers at the bottom there, very, very slow at germinating this year. But they look healthy enough. 3 peppers and 1 aubergine, just enough really. Cucumbers again, doing okay. I think we've got 1 or 2 that are forming. These are the Fem Spot. There's 1 there, and 1 at the back. Again, these were germinated in the greenhouse. They weren't in a propagator, so they were slow, the first batch that we sowed. But the mini cucumber, the Piccolino, these have been fantastic, and if they carry on as they have done so far, well, I don't know how many cucumbers we're going to get. I've taken 16 off now, and they've been like half cucumber size, and if I just show you them, there's dozens on each plant. I don't know if we can get in and see. And I could take them off at that size, I guess, but they look really healthy and green when they're 3 times that size. Just put my hand at the side. They're little at the moment, so if you were going to put it in a lunchbox, that would be a perfect size. You know, you could have one with your sandwiches if you went to work, that kind of thing. But there's about a dozen just on this one plant. More at the side, and dozens more forming as you look up the plant. The one to the left of it, well, that's the same. There must be about 20 or 30 cucumbers that I can see on this one. So these have been tied in. Just a few larger ones on the 2 plants to the right. because I've picked them from these two because they were quite large, but lots. And I like these so much. I looked in the packet and I'd got 2 seeds left, so I've planted 2. So with a bit of luck, we'll have another 2 plants later in the season to transplant and grow on, so we should extend the season a little bit. Had I realised just how prolific they were, I probably would have maybe just transplanted 3 plants and then maybe done another 3 a month or 2 later. But you live and you learn, don't you? So, but everything's looking really healthy. Nothing's been fed yet, and as I say, they're about to be fed for the first time. So Lord knows what's going to happen to these. We might end up taking about a dozen off a day in the coming week or so. So yeah, everything's looking lovely, and there's not much to show you on the top half of the 4th plot. On the bottom half you can see we've got a 20 foot by 5 foot bed just here in between the apple trees, and we've got some broccoli here at the front and carrots at the back. Had some spare potatoes, some pepper and javelin, so I put them in this long bed, this 13 by 5 bed. You can see here I've got a second batch of sweet corn, and they've been out here during the weather, the bad weather, the rain. I've just not had time to plant them though. But they're going to be planted in this second bed just above the elephant garlic. But the elephant garlic's okay, still growing I think. The colour's starting to leach out of the leaves a little bit, but they're really stout plants, so we'll see whether that translates into good cloves. 2 beds left. In this one, as I say, on the bottom half we're going to have 9 sweet corn plants, and then I might put some beetroot at the back, and then I think this top bed is going to have kohlrabi. Still haven't managed to get the site fencing that we need to wrap around these fruit bushes, and we've got gooseberries here as you can see, and some blackcurrants. But as you can see, the horse in the adjacent field has been pushing the fence over and eating the tops of the plants. So that's got to be replaced. As I've mentioned in previous updates, this is not our fence, but we're going to have to tackle it and take it out I think, and I might end up putting site fencing all the way down the side. So sun's just gone in, which is really nice because it's been really hot and humid, but yeah, everything's looking really well. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm done now with the tour. A lot to look at. Everything's looking really nice after the rain. It's nice to see the soil looking brown and healthy as well. I've done the bulk of the weeding, so I'm very relaxed now. I will do the weeding in the cloches this afternoon, but I'm going to have a quick cup of tea and then feed the plants, and then I'm off home for lunch. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, all the best.